everybody. I'm Sean Hammond with PremierGuitar.com. NAMM 2011 Day 1 at the Randall booth with Joe Delaney. Joe, how's it going?
It's going great. 2011 here at NAMM. We'll take it to 11, you know?
So you guys have a new amp, well, a few new amps here that are pretty cool, and I understand there's a pretty interesting story leading up to the development of it. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of new amps this year. What we're zoning in on first is the LB103 and LB412. It's a new series in the Lynchbox series from George Lynch and Randall. George is great. When I came in, I started working with him. The first thing we did was we started the development on the Lynchback speaker with Celestion, which is a signature speaker. And then as we got the amp more developed, we voiced the amp with already having the speaker. George came to our shop in Chicago, spent about 4 days with us. We just got our hands dirty, burnt our hands with the soldering iron, and just really ripped everything apart and went old school, sat at the bench until it was right.
Cool, so there's obviously a lot in that story that you haven't detailed, but one of the more interesting things that pokes out to me is the Lynchback speaker. Is that sort of like a greenback with a higher wattage?
It's a kind of a vintage voiced, higher output speaker. It's not exactly like a greenback. It's not exactly like any of the Celestions, but it has that vintage feel with a little more extended range and mainly the more power. So they're 50 watts each. So you know, I mean, if your favorite is a greenback, you'll like that. You know, it's just a different flavor, and it really works with the amp, and it really works with the cab. The cab is a USA-made cab, best quality Baltic birch. If you notice, there's it's a split design, left to right. So the slant is left to right, so it disperses on the stage a little different. And we're in love with the cab. It sounds great.
Okay, and then as for the head itself, it's 100 watts, yeah, 3 channels.
100 watt, 3 channel, master volume, master presence. Basically, we've done a lot of different preamp channels with George, and these are updated versions of what we had done in the past. He had a module called the Super V, which we tweaked up for this, and then a rather new module that he had for MTS called the Judge, so there's a tweaked version of that. And then the last channel is really totally new. We just went really over the top, and that's the Unholy Grail.
Okay. Now, one of the nice things I noticed firsthand is, you know, there's a fair amount going on there, but you've got the smaller chicken head knob, so it doesn't feel so cluttered.
Yep, smaller chicken head knobs. Wanted kind of a, you know, classy feel, but we didn't want there's a lot going on in the front panel, and we didn't want it to be cluttered. We wanted to make you walk right up to it and have a real easy usability. Okay.
And the power section is EL34s.
Power section EL34s, you can switch it to 6L6, and it's actually user biasable on the back, right on the back panel. So you can use a $20 Radio Shack meter and set up your amp and retube it. So we have that in a bunch of our different amps, and we put that feature into George's.
Well, let's take a listen to this. When we first got here, we heard you playing some surprisingly clean stuff through this that you probably wouldn't expect from a George Lynch amp.
Yeah, it's a really versatile amp. I mean, obviously it's something that we built around George, but George is a tone freak, man. I mean, he's a gearhead. So, you know, we worked on it with him for him, but his desires tone-wise, his palette is so broad at this point that it's really an amp for pretty much anybody. So, you know, you have your shredder type things, but you go to your clean channel. There's a really cool, fat, tube type clean sound. You can wind the gain out a little bit and get a little dirt on it, but it's a really great clean sound. So if anything, you can say it's not just a one-trick pony amp with one shredder metal tone. This is like, it's really in depth, and it really has a complex tone between each channel.
Right. You know, a lot of more high gain amps, you would expect it to be maybe a little more cold or clinical sounding, but that's a very warm, right, vintagey, clean sound.
Exactly. I mean, he has a huge amp collection. He's well steeped in all the great amps of the entire history of the business. So all of that he has on his own and he knows kind of goes into it.
Now, at the beginning, we heard you playing the Unholy Grail channel. Is that right?
I think that was what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to the first one. I'm going to move to is the second one, which is the Judge. that's like the Judge channel. Now I have it kind of set a certain way. I did it very quickly, actually. It sounds really good no matter how you set it, but you can get more aggressive metal tones out of it if you dump the mids out and crank the bass, do some different things. It's flexible, but you know, I kind of went for the straight ahead thing. It's kind of based off your old like modded up metal front super lead type thing. Just over But the last channel, the Unholy Grail, it's just, you know, more gain than you could ever need. And this one can go into like some real, you know, hardcore heavy type.
All right, Joe, so there are other heads and cabs in this line too, right?
Yeah, basically we have the 100, then we go down to the 50, which is not just a 50-watt version of the head, of the 100-watt head. It's really a totally different amp. That comes as a 50-watt head and a 50-watt combo, and there's a 112 extension that you can get as well. And the 112 extension and the combo also have the Lynchback speaker, so they all have the same type of character. But the character of the head is not as much like this one. This is more of an old school amp where to really get it to gain out and really sizzle, you got to turn it up. So it's not something that's gonna like, you know, be completely shredding at a low volume in your bedroom. It doesn't really do that. You got to step into it on the volume.
Now, is this one a 2-channel head?
This is a 2-channel head, 2-channel but shared EQ and presence and master. So basically you have channel 1 with gain and volume, and then the clean channel with just a volume that's sent to the master. So super simple. George wanted an amp that would be a cool thing to, you know, just take anywhere and do its thing. And because it's a small amp and how it's set up, it's one of those amps that sounds the best when it's like wide open, basically.
Let's hear what it sounds like.
That type of thing. And there's a boost that's on both channels, and the boost really picks up on the clean channel, makes it a little more percussive. Or you can get it like rock and roll type over there. That type of thing. And then the lead channel, the main channel, I got that pushed out. And that's, it's really kind of open sounding, not compressed type sound.
Joe, thanks for showing us these new amps. Where can people go to find out more about them?
You can go to usmusic.com, or you can go to randalamplifiers.com. And we have everything up there, lots of info, and it's great.
Cool. Thanks, Joe.
You got it.
I'm Sean Hammond, and you're watching PremierGuitar.com.